And so this is what we're going to be looking at, right? Is how do we create a full page background image website and make it look beautiful and not have it be janky and not have the little scroll bar come up over on the right-hand side. And then also, why would we want to potentially use or know about SVGs? So SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. And there's two categories for graphics. One of them is raster, however you want to say it, raster. I think it's raster. And raster is also often referred to as bitmap, and the word I'm saying there is raster. And if we do a raster and define that, a rectangular pattern of parallel scanning lines followed by electron beam. I don't know what the heck that means, right? But raster versus SV or vector, right? So raster versus vector. And if we go and we look at images, look at that. It looks like we even have some images. Raster versus vector. So raster is going to be mapping bits, bitmap. Okay, so it pixelates if you don't have a high enough resolution. You're going to start seeing the little squares which make up each image, right? That's a bitmap. So common bitmap formats, common raster formats are like, good to see you, are like JPEG, PNG, GIF, and those all have different properties. You know, so GIF has some transparency and animation capabilities. PNG also has some transparency capabilities. JPEG does not. Is that correct? No transparency with JPEG. But those are all raster graphics. Now vector is just a bunch of points. It's a bunch of points, and then your computers understand how to take those points and draw that graphic. And so you basically just give it like, you know, remember back in algebra, you'd say, okay, x, y, you know, and you'd have that point, and you'd put a dot there. Then you have another x, y, and you'd put a dot there, and you draw a line between them. You know, that's basically what SVG does. Okay, is it's just like, here are the different points, start drawing lines of various types between them. And so SVG is great because on devices where you have, you know, many different platforms out there, many different screens, many different pixel densities, you know, SVGs will look good on any screen, whether it's a mobile device or some really massive retina display where your image has to be a lot larger. When that image gets scaled up, it's going to be crisp, clean, and clear. Yeah?
What software would create it?
Adobe Illustrator is one. And there's also a free software for making SVGs. And that free software is going to be, let me see, I have it here in the notes somewhere. Probably about SVG index, and about SVG, grid positions, getting started, introduction, authoring guidelines, tools. So somewhere in here, SVG introduction. This is the best thing I found about SVG MDN. And so SVG tutorial, and then down here at the bottom they have tools. But this to me was the best tutorial for SVG. And so Adobe Illustrator is one, and Inkscape's another one. Haven't played with it. If you don't have access to Illustrator, which is expensive, Inkscape is open source, which means free. Cool. So that's sort of what's on the docket. I don't know how long it'll take us to get through it. Like I said, I've put at least 32, maybe 40 hours into figuring this stuff out. So come on in, Fran. What's happening? All right, so there's the free software. And let's start looking at it. Let's look at the goodies. All right, so the first one is Refactor Challenge background. And somebody showed me this code at the beginning of the semester, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. I like that. And this is, I've dumbed it down a little bit just to give you an even baser starting point. And so it's going to be like Foggy Ocean, and you'll have a menu, and then you'll have some, you know, areas which scroll up and down, okay? I don't know if you could see that, but the bridge in the background there is staying in the same place. Okay, so that was like the starting point. And then the way it finishes up, when it's all done and you kind of add Flexbox and everything into it, is like this. Nice.
Sweet.
Okay? So it's kind of cool because you guys have been learning a lot of fundamentals, and we kind of went through a tough stretch of a couple of weeks where it's just like intricacies and details. But now we're going to start bringing all that together and building some things. At least one site with full page background. We'll see what happens next week, how much time I have. But anyhow, that's that one. We can look at that code in a second. So just a little bit of show and tell here. And then here is, I don't know which one this is going to be. Oh, there we go. So another full page background. That's it. No scroll bars. So every time, no matter what you do with it, never any scroll bars. It's just full page. So if you wanted a site where they get a full page and that's it, and they have to choose where to go and what to do from there, which to me, I kind of like that idea. And this is the code that you'd use. This is like, from everything I know, which granted isn't everything, but from everything I do know, is like, this is the best way to do it today, right? To build this kind of a site today so that you get the most people who are able to effectively use it, like 95% on can I use kind of a deal. So that was like one iteration of it. And then continuing to build on it. Added in a nav bar up top with a few icons and little rollovers on them. And add in a little rollover on that. But when you start, and then a media query and a breakpoint, right, on the media query. So right there you got the stuff up top. And I can't scroll here, nothing's scrolling. But as I hit the breakpoint, you saw how that changed. Right? I lose that menu up top. CodeCamp goes to the center. And how would you do that with Flexbox? What would be the change there for going from CodeCamp on the left and stuff on the right to just CodeCamp in the center? What Flexbox property do you need to change? Like, let's bring it up and let's take a look at it.
Would it use a media query?
Yeah, it uses a media query. CSS Tricks Flexbox. But we have display flex, and then we have flex direction, right, which is row, the default, and then we have flex wrap, which is no wraps, the default, and then we have flex flow, which is the shorthand, and then justify content, right? So I did justify content space between because I had two items which are flex children, put one on the left, one on the right, and then I just centered one of them and made the other one none, display none, right? Got rid of it. And so it just centered that other one right there. So I just changed that one to get the thing in the center. But then it goes to the center, and then we got a scroll bar now. We have a scroll bar now. And notice that that scroll bar is perfectly at the end of the page, no matter where I put the page. Right? It's always 100%. Always 100%. The image is always 100% of the viewport. And then that's always just right beneath, ready to come up. And we can look at that on mobile. And they changed this layout of how you view it on mobile, like halfway through the course, right? They've changed the way it looks here, but I'm just going to go fit to window. And then here, and if I click something, then it's selected. All right, it'd be selecting it if it was actually going somewhere. And we can see it on landscape. And because of my media query breakpoint, I've got these now up here on landscape instead of the one down below. And then continuing that example with the full page background, like right now, my images are using something called Font Awesome. So I'm using Font Awesome to display those little icons in the top right corner. How many people have worked with Font Awesome? Okay. And so Font Awesome is just like another thing that you could include as an import. And here's the cheat sheet. Font Awesome cheat sheet. And it has all these icons. So you need a Google Plus icon right there, right? You need a little gear icon. I don't know where the gear went, but there's a bug. Or Bitcoin, or beer, or battery, or some hamburger menu, right? Like here are all these things. Align left, all these icons, Font Awesome icons. And so to include that in your code, this is what you include. Font Awesome min CSS. And then once I have that in there, I could do stuff like this. This is what puts in that icon. I for icon, I imagine. Not quite sure how that works with all their CSS, but puts the icon there. Okay, what is the I tag? Maybe it means something. That's something I didn't look up.
Is it the same as the EMS tag?
I element represents a range of text that's set off from normal text, so it's just italicized. I thought it maybe meant something else. So they're using italicized and just sticking an icon there. But I guess they went with I because one, people don't really use it, I, italicized. And then two, I stands for icon. Well, one of the things you need to think about is I want to keep my pages as lean as possible and not have a lot of crap being downloaded to my users. Bad user experience, slower load times. And if I look at that min CSS, Font Awesome min CSS, so that's where the magic's happening. That's what I have to import. If I right-click that and reveal in Finder inside WebStorm, it's 27 kilobytes. I don't know, is that a lot or not a lot? 27 kilobytes. Not that much?
Depends on your overall.
Too much?
No, it's small.
Oh, small?
If it's something you're on mobile or not, that'll make a difference.
If what?
If you're on mobile or not.
Oh, mobile or not. All right, I got that down to, the other way you could do it is you could extract the font, just the little icons you need, and somewhere in here I have it. About SVG, pass, fill stroke, view box, HTML document flow, Font Awesome to SVG. Just looking for just the SVGs. So here's a file with just the SVGs that I'm going to be using, and that file is 2 kilobytes. So why download all thousands of all those different icons when I only need 4 of them, right? So let me get those 4 out, and I knocked off 25 kilobytes. But to do that, I have to understand vectors. And then just the high-level preview of everything, and we'll take a look at full-page background code here in a second. And then we'll take a look at SVG and how you work with SVGs. And then the third piece, which is cool. And the other thing that we're going to look at is favicons. And did I do a favicon on this? Seems like I should have. All right, so here are those SVG points I was telling you about. So that's one icon. Doesn't look so pretty, huh? It's like, okay, what's all that mean? We'll go through it. We'll understand it. Not in quite the same thoroughness as we did with Meta Viewport. Let me see if this has a... No, it doesn't. So notice that this does not have... It just has the default WebStorm favicon. So this is known as the favicon up here. And there's an entire way to do favicons. And this is what it entails. Oh, dear God.
Are those for different icons or just the same icons?
Help me, Jesus. Help me. It's like a whole lot of other stuff to figure out. You got to have all these different sizes. You have to have all these different things. That's like just like a whole lot of... Dang. I got to type all that. I got to know what all that stuff's doing to get a nice looking favicon, and it will give you a nice looking favicon. My favicon looks nice. Right? And you can see nice looking favicons. Twitter, YouTube, Google. And then I want to find a crappy favicon. You know, I know where I could find one. Summer Web Bootcamp used to have a crappy one. I think Whack a President has a crappy icon. Yes, it does. I built this. I think I've showed it to you. Crappy favicon.
Yeah, that's cute.
Right, but not crisp, not clean, not clear.
That's in the city college.
Oh, really? Awesome. That's always a good site for how not to build websites. It's okay. It's pretty crisp, actually.
Yeah, you look how much you have to fill in to see it.
Yeah, it just looks like black red. That's not so good. That hurts my eyes, actually. So, cool. Favicon. It's like those little touches, which really, you know, people pay attention to, even if they're not aware of it.
So we did a favicon in 82, but I had them use a website that did it, that
Yeah.
downloaded all those files once I just created it in the editor.
Which, yeah, cool. That's what I was going to show.
Okay.
I wanted to intimidate them first, and then, but if they've already been there,
Some of them, only a few of them.
yeah, basically you just go to a website and say, make all that crap for me, will you?
Yeah.
And then it says, here's all your stuff, and you just put it in. That's just a black square. That's kind of dumb.
Sorry, I didn't mean to blow your process there.
No, that's fine. I do have a little README I put together for favicons. Everything you want to know about favicons, or I put together a bunch of notes from different sources. So we have that. And I did one for SVG too. About SVG. It's not as pretty. All right. So background. Responsive background, background color, background image. That's the one we did. And let's do a refactor challenge background. That's like even hard for me to see. That's better. Let's just look at that screen. So we're going to look at full page background. Do you want to start with the nice example or start with the less nice and kind of learn? What do you want to do? Less nice, less code. All right. So the original one here. Well, let's just start with the end one, and you can look at the in between. So this is the foggy ocean. Okay. And we have two CSS. We have the meta viewport, content width equals device width, initial scale equals 1, and then we have a reset, and then we have main CSS. We have a picture there, fog JPEG, and then main and reset. So our reset here is all of that. And this might have been the one where I went through it. So if we compare this reset to the original CSS reset, Eric Meyer, I believe. It's got things like H group, and it also has other stuff in here which is deprecated. And so to refactor this, I went through and I took out all the tags which were experimental or deprecated, and then also just looked up each of the tags I wasn't sure about, and like, should that even be in the reset? And so what the reset is doing is just basically margin, padding, border, right? Setting all that to 0. So that's the box model. And then there's a vertical align baseline, which puts all the text on the same line. And I added in font size 62.5%. But comparing that to the Meyer reset again, right? There's block quotes stuff. Before I took that out, I just did quotes none. There's a little table there. List style none. Body line height 1. I took out the line height 1. So each of those things, I just started playing with them and looking them up and making sure I understood each of those. And I took out whatever was old and also what to me didn't make sense. So that doesn't mean someday I might not put one of these things back in, but that was like my first step, just to kind of like clean that up. Cool, I'm still recording. I wasn't sure if I'd restarted it. And then the main style. And again, the order is important, so I got to reset everything. All that CSS is applied first, and then this CSS is applied second. So here, body, we have a background image. And from the original example, I think the original example used shorthand. And until you totally understand what all of the other pieces do that shorthand properties sort of make up, it's good to list them all out so you understand all the properties that make them up. Like with Flexbox, right, we could use FlexFlow, which is flex direction and flex wrap. But until you understand flex direction and flex wrap, use flex direction and flex wrap. And then when you're like tired of typing all that because you've done it so many times, okay, go to FlexFlow, right? Use background image, background repeat, background position, background attachment, background size until you understand all that, and then you could just use background. And you know all those other little elements in there. So I expanded that out, I believe. So background image, you know, and then not repeating it, and then the position is top center. And then, you know, the background attachment, which is kind of like which property is it? The one that does the fixed layout. We have display, block inline, position fixed, right? We have the position fixed, position relative, position absolute. And just to remind ourselves what that looked like in the CSS. Position fixed, right? Was something we set before. With a background image, we could do background attachment fixed, and it keeps it in one place. And background size cover. And then the H1, just color, text align, font size, and then our nav. So looking at what this is again, here's the nav. And the nav was display flex and justify content center. So what happens if I take this out? Interesting. And put it back in. Brings it over. And so the nav is right here. And the nav is taking the UL and it's making it a flex item and it's centering it. And then how big is that nav? So that's the container, right? So the nav container all the way across, and when we do this, it takes its children, which it only has one child, the UL, and justify content centers it along the main axis, which is horizontal, because flex direction row is the default. And then the UL, we do display flex. So what happens if we take that out? Huh. So why is it when this is on, it goes like that? Well, the UL makes this a flex container, right? Display flex makes that a flex container. These all become flex items, each of those LIs. And the default settings for Flexbox, when you do like make something a flex container, the flex direction is row and flex wrap is no wrap. So flex direction, the default is row. And flex wrap, the default is no wrap. So when we make something a flex container, it's row, no wrap by default. So these guys are row, no wrap. So put them in a row. Otherwise, they're just going to line up as LIs and LIs. What are they? I think I have that there already. One pixel blue. So I set a certain width on those, 100 pix, and a certain height. So that was getting that menu. And then the LIs, display flex, justify content center, align item center. So each LI becomes a flex container. It means the anchor is the flex item. And those will be row, no wrap, and center, center. So center, justify content center, centers along the horizontal axes, the main axes. And align items, centers it vertically. So basically we took the anchors and centered them. What happens if we turn that off? Nothing. Maybe I don't need that code. It's interesting. I left it in for some reason. It's not like me to leave something in that's not needed. All right, we'll see what happens. Then LI hover, and then our anchor tags. And once again with the anchor tags, display flex, justify content center, align item center. So what's the child of the anchor tag? The text. So it's just going to center that text in the middle of that anchor. So if I took that out, put that back in, nice. So you can see I'm really leaning on Flexbox. But I'll be able to access 96% of browsers. And 4%, IE8, IE9. Sorry, we aren't going to provide service to you. I guess I don't need those. You know, it's still working. And then the rest of it's hover. And in the main, we have display flex and flex direction column. So main is holding those sections. And so those sections, if we put a border around them, are those? Kind of like that. Just like copy that code. And so display flex, flex direction column lines them all vertically. And then just background colors. So this is it for getting that whole image in the background. Not too bad, just the body part right there. That's where we're setting the image, no repeat, top center, fixed, cover. But notice this one gets scroll bars and the image just stays there. So that's one effect you could go for. And then this other one, same thing, the image is staying in the background, the text is going over the top. It's a little bit hard subject to explain. Because a lot of it is doing it. Okay, any questions?
What number were you working from? I can't really see.
Yeah, I don't know why that's so small. Refactor challenge background image. Refactored Flexbox.
Thank you.
66. Thanks for the question. So the next one is to sort of do this one. And so just starting at the basic, just like let's get the image there. No scroll bars, the image is taking it all up. The CSS on that is just main. So similar, background image, position, repeat, attachment, fixed, size cover, and then a background color. And you could do a shorthand notation. That's the shorthand notation. Center, center, cover, no repeat, fixed. Yeah.
Why the combination of the background image and the background color?
So if the image is taking time to load, you have a little bit of style. So if that wasn't there. And you saw that as I loaded this page just briefly. Let me close it. Took a second for it to load it in. There's a gray there for a second. And then the next thing I did to that after I got the background image is start adding text before I've even styled it. So to get that, we have main, CSS, and style. So let's look at main. It's just that one again. And so style. And this was surprising to me. This is kind of something I've been looking for to show you. HTML body header height 100%. Because I was like, that's something I hadn't figured out until I discovered this over spring break. Right? I was like, do you use viewport height? Right? Because there's like this thing at Can I Use? Guess I closed it. And we have VH. And so, but that's only 80% of browsers. We've talked about that when we were talking about units of measurement. And so I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. But if you just do height 100% for HTML body and header, then that's like the whole thing. And then I just did a manual reset there, HTML body header section. So if we look at this page and then take this out, all right, you could see that text kind of expanded. And I got a wonky scroll bar. See that wonky scroll bar? So what would I do? Height 96%. Cool, no scroll bar. Well, why'd that scroll bar show up when it's height 100%? Because I got some margin and padding probably around the HTML or the body, and so when I put that on, I no longer have any margin or padding around these things, and I just put those because those are the ones I'm using. And even if I just had it around, let's just take it around HTML. Let me copy this in case I mess it up too badly. Okay, so I still have a scroll bar, right? Even though it doesn't really scroll to anything, just a little bit of scroll there. What about if I do HTML body? Now my scroll bar's gone. Cool, right? So it took the body. What about if I just had body? Do I need to reset the HTML? Nope, just the body, right? So that's setting the height to 100%, and then that, and then just font size, color, and then header. And so here's my header, and I'm saying display flex. So let's see, where is the header on the page? Is that still memory? It's not. My header is the whole deal. Let's make that a little bigger. There's my header. And why is the header so big? It's 100%. The page is 100%, HTML is 100%, the body is 100%, the header is 100%. I don't know if HTML has to be in there. That's the thing that's interesting about experimenting with this. Like, what don't I need? And if I put HTML back in, that little is me playing with the scroll bar, the scroll wheel to see if it scrolls. So HTML body header is all needed, 100%. Without it, it wasn't working. I might be able to take that one out. I took that one out. That was all right, but I don't know if the HTML element could have margins and paddings. What is the HTML element? Show yourself to me. It's there. So header is 100%. How are things getting centered in the header? We have it centers it. I guess it's 100%, and then the child stuff in it gets centered. That's what's happening. So the header is the container. It's the whole page basically, and we make that a flex container, and then we say justify content and line items. That puts it in the middle of the page. That's cool. So basically, take up the whole page, HTML body header, and no margins or padding, so a little bit of a reset, and then just a little font styling. And for that header, which is taking up the whole page, 100%, with no margins or padding, right? Take its content and center it. So we have one item which is centered, which is the section. And then for the section, we're going to do that as a column and align things in the center. So now all these things inside the section, the H1 and the paragraph and the two paragraphs, those three things will be flex children, items, flex items. And they'll all be in a column and aligned center. So justify content center, that will operate on the primary axis, which is the vertical axis. And then align items will operate on the cross axes, which is the horizontal axes. And so align items puts things horizontally in the center, and justify content does things vertically in the center. Sorry, I'm highlighting the wrong one right there as I talked about that. And then H1 and paragraph, text align center. So paragraph has some text in there with different elements. And so I just use the old school way of centering text horizontally, which is text align center. What happens when I take that out? See how secure your future and learn to code? Learn to code's looking all right. But secure your future went over to the left. Secure your future is now in the center. Because secure your future is a child of strong, right? Which is a child of paragraph. So I was like, I'm not going to try to make that a flex container. I'm just going to do text align center, and it's less code. How many people learn something from that? How many people are like, dear God? A little bit? So, I mean, just keep in mind, right, that I'm relatively new to this too. I've only been doing it since 2013. And I had to put in like 32 hours, maybe 40, depending, I can't remember how many days I worked, 4 or 5. Yeah, can't remember. And, to kind of get this, get the stuff to work and to understand it, to play with it, and to get out all the extraneous stuff. And I'm still not like master at explaining, though I hope you're getting the main content. I don't feel like I have such command of it that I'm like, HTML, body, and your header section are all 100%. It's the whole page. I don't know, right? Like I don't quite have that. It's the way it is. So that was adding the text, and the next thing was just to style the text. And so then that just takes some tweaking, right? With all of our little margins, padding, because everything was centered, is all lined up. Now I just need to add, so we have the content, right? And then around the content we have the padding, and then we have the border, and then we have the margin. So okay, I'm going to do a little margin between these guys, and a little bit of border around that one, and change some color and change the font. By the way, that image, we were worried about 27 kilobytes. 1.8 megabytes.
What's the resolution on that? That was actually going to be one of my questions. What did you make the resolution?
55 by 36.
Dang!
So you got to pay your price. You want a nice image, because some people. So how can you mitigate that? You have media queries, right? So that's one of the things I did right here. Mobile, image, CSS. That's what I'm looking for. That's not it. It's probably in here by there. All right, so I have some media queries, right? So you could just tell by my CSS that there are some media queries. And then the way those are included are like this. All right, bring down this style sheet if this happens to be the case. And for like the big one, 506 plus, right, like one of the main things is go get that image. And for the less, all the less is give me the small image. And so you could say which image is served based upon the person's screen resolution. So you could be serving small images on mobile. And then for most desktops, you could serve the 3,000 pixel resolution, 3,000 or 2,500. Like if you're up to 2,500, you could have like 10 images. and just break it by resolutions of 500, you know? So have the image with the width of 1,000, the image with the width of, or for mobile maybe image with the width of 600, and then image of a width of 1,500 for everything between 6 and 15, and then between 15 and 25 you have an image with a resolution of 25, right? And then for the big one you assume, man, somebody's got that massive, you know, retina, gigantic monitor. They probably also have really good bandwidth, you know. So give them that one. So it looks good, and they've got the bandwidth to actually get it. Because that was like what, 1.7 megabytes, megabytes, 1.7 megabytes times
Did you optimize it?
1024.
Did you optimize it?
No, I just found it.
Okay.
I have to give credit where credit's due. Background, refactor, background, full page background, credit. So it came from this site, and this guy has a tutorial using that image, and it's like anybody could use it, public domain kind of deal. He said go for it. So that's the guy where it came from. There's the credit and the license. But I took his code and styled it to be more what we're learning with Flexbox and everything like that. And putting in Font Awesome, and so you can see his, the original version versus mine. So his is you know, slightly different nav bar up top, no icons, and none of the little icon buttons down below when you get big, and just this is centered right here, and it's, I don't think there's Flexbox. I know that's not Flexbox. I'm pretty sure that's not. But you can look at how he wrote his code, just see a different way.
On your icons for your Font Awesome, did you take into consideration touch targets?
Yeah, no. I probably didn't make those big enough. That was one of my thoughts, though. I had that thought too.
It's just good. It's just, I mean, it's a great example. And just another thing, because mobile first, we have to think about the touch targets, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rio, what Rio's talking about with touch targets is my mouse is acting funny.
Yeah, your fingers, right? You want to be able to touch the icons. There's standards. Google, I think on your fundamental example that you gave from Google gives those examples.
Yeah. So these are fine touch targets. They might be a little bit thin. Maybe make them a little wider.
Rio, if you don't mind me asking, I'm not familiar with touch targets.
So when you're on a mobile device, your finger, when you touch it, there's standards that they say you need to make sure it's a minimal amount. Otherwise, you can't. You ever been on your phone and you can't hit something because it's just not. It's too small, right? So they're saying make it. There's a minimum number. I don't even remember what it is, but I know on the standards like the fundamentals from Google and other things, they'll tell you here's.
Yeah, so 44 pixels is what we just found out. And I just realized that I wasn't running on Ethernet, but on Wi-Fi.
That's impressive for a while.
Yeah, I was kind of impressed too. I was like, whoa.
I had another quick question.
Yeah.
Being that if we go to mobile first, like we're on our phone, and we go to load that page, even though we have everything linked, whether you're desktop or mobile, it would only load that mobile image.
Yeah, because it won't even pull. And that's the advantage of doing the media query.
Big advantage. Huge advantage.
Yeah, and you know, right here it's just like, okay, it's pretty clear this is only coming down if that's the case. You know, I think Wi-Fi throws my wireless mouse off. I'm just realizing that. So this Ethernet's not working anymore for me.
With my Mac, I had to put it in and wait for a second or two for it to
We'll see if this one works. Because that Wi-Fi throws my mouse off. All right, so that was a full page background, added text, styled the text. You guys want to see any of the styling that was done on that? I'm going to start saying you gals.
Thank you.
Tough luck for you guys. You gals want to see any of that? Isn't it kind of funny when you just turn these common cultural idioms around and maybe stop to think about them? So that's just that part. And then the styling. And maybe this is also just instructive to see my own personally developed, not yet copyrighted, patent pending method for understanding CSS, which is just come in here and like, okay, you know, font family, you know, and comment stuff out and see how it changes. And this could be, I guess now is a cool time to show it to you. This can be totally useful if you have two monitors, because you could preview this, right? Grab that URL, copy it, and you can come up here to in WebStorm, and there's ways to do this in other editors, but in WebStorm you go to debug, edit configurations, and I'm going to create a new JavaScript configuration. So this one's called, have I showed you this? This one's called whatever. So if that wasn't there, I'd add a new one and make it a JavaScript debug. And so I'm just going to call this one what's up. And the URL that I paste in here is that one that I just got from my preview. And that's it. I don't know what all this is here. Maybe I should have selected something there. But now I could do what's up and run what's up. And there's also debug what's up. I'm going to run it and see if that does it for me. And so there's what's up running. So I'm just shrinking this down. And we will try first to see if this is working. Responsive full page background. No. Let's try debug. So I'm going to debug. Okay, so there's debug. We'll close that. Live edit.
So is there benefits of that over developer tools? Because developer tools do most of that.
What's developer tools?
In Chrome.
So the benefit is I don't know what developer tools is. I do, actually. Yeah, Rio's saying you could also do the same deal right here. And you come down here and open developer tools. And then it's under elements. And so like I inspect this, inspect. And then it shows me all the CSS. And I could click on computed. And here's that CSS that's computed for that deal. And so I guess I got to stay in styles.
Yeah, you can.
And I could do like where's that font family? I could turn that off. All right, I could turn that back on. So you could also do it right there. Just right if you don't have the WebStorm deal set up. But in WebStorm, I like changing the code because if you change the code here, then how do you get the code back into your editor?
There actually is a way now to round robin it, but typically you go and change it in the editor. There is now hooks that you can use to do it.
Like plug in, make that sort.
Yeah, you just make sure your editors. I haven't done it actually. I just read about it, where you can connect the editor and live changes and change it there. Which is nice. The developer tools offer a lot.
So then for styling that text, header, we've looked at that section. Display flex, align. See, we have a margin top now on that section. All right, that's new. So if I took that out, hey, I have that back on. So here's with margin top, and the E is 1, 2, 3 at the bottom of 3 of those stories. So bottom of the responsive fulls at the bottom of 3 of those stories, and there's a little bit above 3 of those stories, right? But that's like the interior designer in me. That's me getting in touch with my gay side. High five. Funny. I'm kidding. You know, right? Like that, you know, a lot of times, I don't know, whatever. But, you know, gay guys can dress and decorate better. True story.
Or Metro.
More Metro, man. And I don't know what happened to the other dudes. They didn't inherit that so much. But that's the thing, right? Like
That's your UI UX.
That's your UI UX. There you go. That's a better way to say it.
I mean, it was a joke, but frame it more as a UI UX. Just
That's-
by the head.
That's your UI UX. Yeah, so it's just like colors and position and moving things in pixels. And font size, font weight. I did Google Fonts. You guys know Google Fonts? How many people don't know Google Fonts? So you could go to Google Fonts and you could scroll through. Is that like a red zone, like not appropriate comments? I'll have to talk to you about that afterwards. I apologize if I offended anybody. That's not how I intended it.
No,
I mean it as a compliment if you're that demographic. I do.
Well, I'm not a gay guy, but but I do know you.
Yeah, so here are all these fonts, and you could choose different kinds. So you might say, hey, for categories, I think we went over this. I just want the handwriting fonts. And you could see the handwriting fonts, and then you could be like, I want to add this to my collection. And then you could click on Use, bottom right. And then you scroll down, and it basically tells you how you use it. So you just drop this in as kind of like a thing, and a link to a style sheet. It even says style sheet. But it's going to the web to get that data for that font. And then you just use it in your CSS like this.
It
Right.
will show up on all of the sites though? Like if you use Google Fonts?
On each page, you need to say, this, drop that in, right? And I've added 2 weights there, the 400, 700, it's like different.
Other browsers, it would be okay with.
Yeah, because it's going to download that font to their browser. You're downloading that to this person's device, and they're waiting for it. And then I could access that in the CSS in the way that they said. And so right here, I'm Cantarell sans serif, split vertically, and that's Cantarell.
Question, is it possible maybe to just, each page, is it possible just to load it to the CSS that would relate to all pages, possibly?
It gets cached. So if they download it once, then their browser should store it until they clear their cache. And when you ask for it again, it'll know it has it, and it doesn't have to go get it. That's the theory. But that's a great thought. Like, why download it every page you go to? But the people who manufacture browsers want to have good browsers so people use them. And so they think about that. Like, we already have the asset, let's cache it. And then we don't have to go get it. And then people be happier because our browser's quicker because we're not downloading things they already have that they don't need to download again. It results in a better user experience. They like our browser better, right? So that's cache. I'm not sure. I wonder if there's some way like to see cache. That'd be interesting to see like, oh, I've got it, and okay, this time. I think you could probably do that in the developer tools, and look at what's being downloaded. So down here there's this thing where when you ask for a page, you get this waterfall. And so this is everything that came down. Font, right? Font. And then if I went to another, oh, right here, there's that, right? And then if I went to another page at this site, would it ask for it again, or would it know it had it? And so here's the timeline start. So that took a while, 956 bytes, 76 milliseconds, right? And you can see that took a little bit of time. And these things couldn't start until that was here. So that really delayed our page being displayed by 70 milliseconds, having that. Maybe. That's a whole beast in and of itself right there, performance. So that's the styling, that center stuff. And then finally just changing it to be mobile. I think that's what this is. I called it mobile. So we're in 067, full page background. And I just kind of, I build to my screen size, and then I have to like turn all my code upside down and make it mobile. That's just my working method, and I don't recommend it. I think you should, if you could start out mobile, think that way, and then just step it up to full desktop. That's probably a better way to do it. But for me, for whatever reason, I build full desktop, and then I have to like, turn it all upside down and make it mobile first. So, same deal. And right there you saw a little flash. And I don't know if you could see the image quality change. See that?
Yeah.
Right? So there I'm in a low res image. Here I'm in a high res image.
That wall right there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it blurs out, huh? And the windows on the tall building. But, I mean, crispness makes a difference. And so to get that, what do we have? Main. And so I just did a media query right there. And I'm downloading the small image for everybody. And then if you're a large screen, we're replacing it with the big image. So everybody gets at least the small image. And that's not the best way to do it. And that stuff all is the same. So that's just like a first take on getting that thing optimized for mobile. And then the next thing was Font Awesome, which I introduced you all to already. And then we moved into just see if there's some Font Awesome. So here are the instructions for Font Awesome. You can kind of look through it on your own, but there's some things when you download it. You basically go to Font Awesome. And then you say, hey, I want to download that. And do you want to pay for also Fort Awesome? No thanks, just Font Awesome. And because that will make you pay. And so I downloaded that, and then I double click it and extract it. And then here inside there's like fonts and less and SCSS. And that's like different ways you could write CSS, which I really don't think you need it. This is just my opinion. Rio, you could tell me if you get this too, but like people who only do CSS have a programmer complex and they need to make CSS more like programming. I don't know.
Well, I think it's pretty powerful to do, because you can write it more flexible.
Have you played with it?
Yeah. So, I mean, once you start writing it that way, it's hard to write it the other way. So,
I can see
it's
that.
So powerful.
CSS itself.
Well, writing it in terms of a preprocessor to where you can write it more logic-based and have it be applied. So it's more effective, I think, to do it that way, but you really have to change your mindset around the way you think about CSS to But once you do, everybody I've talked to, and now including myself, I get why it's so popular, because it's so powerful to use.
Yeah, you guys are 2 years away from even worrying about that. I've been in it 2 years. I'm like, I don't think I want to deal with it. I'm a purist, though. Fundamentals. So then, pretty much you just need that file right there. That's what you're going to point to. So you get that and you drop that into your site, which I've done. Always I'm like, am I still recording? Okay, cool. And so there's that in that site, right? And then the CSS is right there. And then in my file, I am saying I need that min CSS. So really, that's all I need in my site right there. And I think I have a little bit of hesitancy. I have like 90% certainty that's all you need. And then you have access to all this stuff. So you have different sizes. You can make them different sizes, and you could do, these kinds of deals. And there's spinner icons and, stuff like that. And like this. So pretty cool. And you can layer them on top of each other. So that's actually a camera with another circle with a line through it, another SVG on top of it. And the one on top I made red. And these are the examples from Font Awesome. I just put them into a file so we could look at the code and play with it if you wanted to. And then start putting that into the site, create a nav. So the first step in the nav was just to kind of like get it to do what I want it to do. And well, I got a gray bar up top. And then the next step was to make that gray bar, hold two things on the left and right. So I just did two divs and made them red and said put one here, one there, right? And that was with the space between, I think. Justify content space between. Yeah, I think that's right. We can look. Justify content space between.
So for your transparency, you just use the RGBA.
Yeah. And so to make that, it's just straight black and then a little transparent on that nav.
Because that would be more recommended than I've seen or read about individuals using PNG and like.
Yeah, no. I think it'd be way better just to do the RGBA. I don't know what the difference would be, but that's just my hit. Like, how long is it going to take it to do that as opposed to, you are all black with 60% transparency? That'd be cool if the world responded to CSS. You're all black with 60% transparency. This is cool. And then I did the little fonts up at the top, right? And so I just started, building it up and a little text up there. And remove the div color and then responsive media query. So here's where I dropped in, I think, the media queries. So I started putting in media queries about, this size and less, this size and more. So max width 505 is 505 and less. 506 is 506 plus. And we'll just finish off with this one here. And then the mobile nav, adding that in, and then just a refactor to clean up all the code. So when you look through this, you might just look at you can look at all the steps or just look at the finished one of each kind of phase and see what happened. Right, so when I refactored it, one of the things I did was I changed some of my tags, right? And this one I think is interesting because in mobile I added that. And so to get that to work, I want, not main, I don't think, less CSS, 500 mobile nav. So that's mobile, and then on 506 plus, top right nav, I'm looking mobile bottom nav display none, right? So mobile bottom nav display none is mobile bottom nav. So all that doesn't get displayed when you get over 506 pixels, 506 pixels up. And then for the top, right, we're at this. So how do we get rid of that big thing on the right? All those icons on the right when we're mobile. That, and then that's 505 and less. So that's just the image. And this is 505 less. And the one we're looking at is header. And we have top left nav and top right nav. So we're kind of looking for top right nav. And bottom nav, bottom nav, bottom nav, not there. And then top right nav becomes display flex here. So that's being displayed. But what is this one? Top right nav. Top right nav, display none. So that gets applied straight out of the gate. That's these style CSS gets applied to everybody, right? But then when this gets called in, 506 plus, it changes it from display none to display flex, and then that pops back up, and it's in the mix again, right? So that's the top right nav. So that's kind of a cool thing. Top right nav, display none initially, which gives us this. It's not being displayed. And then we get over 500, and we get to 506 pixels, and then that pops in, right? Because at 506 pixels, it goes top right nav, display flex. That's cool. So when you do display none, it's out of there from Flexbox's perspective. And originally, right, this one should be originally that top nav should be take all my children and put them in the center. So justify content center. And then here, when 506 plus, take all my children and space between, justify content space between. And so that's going to be applied to the header. Take all my children, put them in the center. Well, when it's less, it's only going to be there. So when we have just styles, header, display flex, justify content center, I love it when I'm right. When it's like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I wrote, cool. And then when it becomes 506 plus, header becomes justify content space between. Put my children out each side. So Flexbox has been really important for the way I'm teaching you all to build websites. You could talk to Chris. Chris, is that right? No. Alan. Alan, you could talk to Alan. I don't know, Chris came to mind. People call you Chris ever? Is that no? You could talk to Alan after class and see if I'm doing you right or not. He's been coding this stuff a long time. But Flexbox is pretty important. One preview I'll leave you with, kind of like a teaser. Is SVGs. About SVG, basic shapes. I don't know what shape this is. Basic shapes. I want binoculars. What happened to my binoculars? I think it'll be this one. I have instructions here for taking images from Font Awesome and turning them into vectors with Adobe Illustrator. But what I want to show you is this. That's cool. That's fine. And then if I change the width on this to like 5,555, I don't know where it went. Well, the width is there. I have to get rid of the height. There we go. So you can see that the resolution is still really good because it just draws it out. I mean, then you see all the nuances of the drawing too. Yeah, that's SVG. Kind of cool. All right. I think your homework, I'll put it up, will be to create a responsive full-page background site, not unlike, or just like this, So basically, this kind of a deal. How many people like this site, like this kind of a site? And then also, I'm curious too, like, why don't you bring in on Thursday? Bring in on Thursday, like, I'd like to know how to build this site. And then let's look at it. And so everybody bring in a site you'd like to know how to build. I'll put a link up. It'll be an assignment, and you'll just submit the URL, and then we can just go through and look at them all. And just as an example, here's one that I like that I saw a while ago. I showed it to you at the beginning of the semester. I think this is it. How do you think he's doing that?
Fixed background, the index maybe.
Fixed background and what?
The index.
And Z-index? Maybe, I don't know. What do you think?
It's probably like a header height set, so there's that gap so you can see the background.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea, huh? Header height is set. So like this is all header. This is sitting on top of the header. This is the background image of the header, and then it's just like extra space there. So you see the background image, so as that scrolls up. And then what about that part right there?
Top is fixed.
Top is fixed, so that's just always on the top. Like that would be cool. Like that's a pretty cool site, right? But we're at the point where it's like 2 people in class just were like, oh, and then it's like with those little seeds, I bet more than half of you would be like, oh, okay, I think I could probably get that up. Get that going. Top is fixed. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Somebody. So that'll be the second assignment. Anybody have questions?